Joining the All Nations Food and Arts Festival. This is our final week of the festival, and it's just been a wonderful time to get to highlight a lot of our Fuller students. And so today we're blessed to have Morley van Yperen, and she is the founding member. She's the founding member and theologian in residence of Ekklesia Contemporary Ballet. She received a bachelor's degree in Biblical Studies and Theology from Gordon College and is now pursuing a certificate of Christian Studies in Arts and Theology at Fuller. Morley began dancing as a 4-year-old in New York City and later joined a modern dance repertory company, Dance Family, through the 63rd Street Y. In high school, she studied the Humphrey Weidman technique of modern dance in Connecticut, performing each original Humphrey works as water study. As a student at Gordon College, Morley also took part in introducing liturgical worship dance to her Baptist church and to the college chapel services. After graduating, she continued to explore the intersection between dance and worship and the further connection of both with scripture and spirituality. For more than 10 years, she has served as a student, performer, and faculty member in the Dance Academy and Ministry of Living Rock Church, the home of Ekklesia Contemporary Ballet Company. With her strong background in both theology and dance, Morley helps the company members and choreographers explore how the Bible speaks to them as artists and how their work may offer practical applications of theology for themselves, the community around them, and the world they live in. So I'm going to turn it over to Morley so she can give you a quick hello and tell you a little bit about the piece we're about to see.
Great, thank you. Just want to say one thing. I am not the founding member. I was a founding member because the company's made up of lots of people and the members all are young. And so I went to seminary and became their theologian in residence. So I'm not dancing with them anymore. Ekklesia Contemporary Ballet is just this really, really beautiful group of dancers. There are quite a few Christian dance companies all over the country. I think one of the things that makes Ekklesia really unique is the way they're diving into theology and trying to translate and interpret scripture with their dance, and also do practical theology and apply it to the things that we're grappling with as a people and as a nation and as Christians. So I want to show you one of our works that was birthed out of a project, an ongoing project that we've been doing, diving into the Psalms. We started this about 5 years ago, this project of taking the Psalms and touching them with dance and touching things that were going on in our world with them. And the first one was a collaboration between an Old Testament professor at Duke named Ellen Davis and our artistic director, Alyssa Schroth. And we were talking about the Syrian refugee crisis, which was just very present among all of us at that time, about 5 years ago. And so we pulled on a piece of music by Leonard Bernstein and Psalm 2 and Psalm 23, and we created a piece that we were actually able to use. It was called Roar of Nations, and even work with communities of refugee children, high school students, and just to be able to start dialogue with it. And then out of that came this piece, which is called Dark Night. And it is we're engaging Psalm 42, but we're also engaging St. John of the Cross's poem, Dark Night of the Soul. And we're talking about and working with and exploring the experience of post-traumatic stress disorder. And this came out of some of the refugees that we met. But then we realized as we started working on it that this could touch so many different people. So as a company, we dive into the word together, we dive into some contemporary scholarship on the issue together, and then we work as dancers. So I'd like to present to you Dark Night.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Morley. It was so beautiful and so moving. And I just want to open it up for anyone. If you have questions, you can either add it in the chat here on Zoom or on the chat within the YouTube live link. But just to kind of start us off, I wonder if you could just kind of share with us a little bit about what it means to be the theologian in residence at your company, and describe kind of what that entails, how you contribute to each piece, and kind of what the process is like.
Sure. It's what we always get. Everybody's always so intrigued that there's somebody called a theologian in residence. But we realized that the foundation of our work, actually, I like to describe it as a scaffolding, is not just to practice our skill at dance or our artistry, but to really be able to understand how Scripture works, how our bodies work, how our understanding of ourselves as artists, of God and His call on us as artists, what role dance can play in the formation of the individual, of a congregation, of a community. And all those things have a theological gravitas to it. It's an importance. And to connect that is an important part of work, to make this a whole body, a whole being endeavor, not just for the dancers, but for the people that we engage with. We know that there's a purpose. We know that there's a reason. It's not just to make beautiful movement or to add something nice to music, but that dance can do something. And that's what we were trying to figure out, and realize that that's grounded in theology. So that is, I work with the company every day that they're in rehearsal. We have a time of devotion and a time of study. And so it's not just Bible study. We're talking about call, we're talking about vocation, we're talking about the mind, body, soul connection. We're talking about the theological understanding of the work that we're doing. Right now we're doing a piece on climate. So we've been digging into that theologically, and also how that affects our contact with the community and what we hope that builds. We also are a company of Christians from diverse backgrounds and diverse denominational and traditional backgrounds. So, and they come without understanding those differences sometimes. And so we're even diving into the history of our own faith expression and how movement works with that, how we feel about that. So all those different things is my job.
That's great. I love that. I love that, you are really incorporating theology into everything that you do, and that it really is more kind of like discipleship in a way.
Yeah.
So that's really great. Thanks so much for all that you do with that. I'm wondering too, if you can, dance is a medium of embodiment, and I wonder if you could talk about the relationship between dance and worship embodiment.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even among some of the dancers in the company, they've separated dance so much from even their worship sometimes that's a jump for them. It's kind of interesting. The dance company used to be so much a part of the church that we had dance worship teams, and we've moved on to being more of a professional company that's operating outside as a parachurch ministry more than anything else. But we do need to heal our connection, our body-soul connection. One of the things that we came to understand through our deep dive into the Psalms is that the word for soul in the Hebrew, there isn't the dualism there. The word for soul is the word for this part of your body, for your neck, which houses your esophagus and your ability to breathe. It's what connects and what brings sustenance and life into our body. So a soul is really this whole self thing, and that is something that we've really incorporated as a dance company. How do we take our bodies and express with them, interpret with them, and heal with them? And that's part of what we did with this piece. We were reading The Body Keeps the Score as we were working on this piece. And we were working on Psalm 42 because it says, my soul, why are you so downcast within me? And David's talking to his soul, but the body keeps the score as well. And so we were dealing with that. How do we embody this? How do we flesh this out? And the other thing that's interesting about dance is your medium is not clay, it's not paint, it's human bodies. And it's a company of human bodies. So sometimes a dancer will come in and not be feeling well, and yet they still have to participate with the rest of the dancers, or they've hurt themselves. And so you're talking about dynamic, whole people who are your medium, your art medium that you're working with. So it's and interrelationally with each other too. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I'm wondering about you too. I know you said you started dancing when you were 4. Where did your love of dance come from? And I mean, did you have, family members that were very involved in dance or anything like that?
No, I don't know. I was a young girl growing up in New York City, and I remember going to see the Nutcracker very early on, and I guess I just wanted to be a ballet dancer, I guess. But I wasn't so into ballet as I got further in. I was much more into modern dance. And when we moved out of the city, we actually moved right across the street from a modern dance studio, and I didn't know anything about the person who ended up really teaching me the Humphrey Weidman technique. It was a woman named Ernestine Stodelle, and she was an original company member of the Humphrey Weidman company. She actually was a company member along with Martha Graham, and she was in her 70s when she taught us. And she was in the process of I forget the word. She was taking the original Humphrey pieces and saving them and writing them down and resetting them on us she was saving them for history. But I didn't have an understanding of that when I was in high school, of what I was actually a part of, until the past decade. I started working with this company and with Ekklesia. And through that, I got to know a lot of really interesting people in the dance world, someone who had originally danced with Alvin Ailey and then danced with Martha Graham. And I started to understand the history of what I had touched when I was younger. But the other interesting thing is that I was not aware that dance was going to take this role in my life. I'm the mother of 5 sons and a daughter who's my daughter's adopted from China. And every single one of my children has danced in one way or another. But one of my sons now is a student at Alvin Ailey, and has helped dance with in Ekklesia. He wasn't the one in that piece because he had already moved on. But now he's growing and he's understanding things that I never understood. So it does move through generations. I just don't know where it came from for me.
That is so neat. I love that, your children this is continuing on through them in many ways. So that's very, very cool. And then just one last question from me. And then if there's anyone else, feel free again, put it in the chat or on the YouTube live. But kind of what were your hopes coming into seminary and where you are now? What has changed in how you see the connection between faith and dance?
My hopes coming into seminary was to be able to make sure I wasn't blowing a lot of hot air. I knew that there was something really special. Actually, one of the things that started our dive into the Psalms was I watched David Taylor's conversation with Bono and Eugene Peterson on Fuller Studio, and I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. I thought I knew it. I knew there was something important for the arts, and if music, then how much more the human body, through dance. And so I actually, Ellen Davis, the Old Testament scholar from Duke, is actually my stepmom. And I called her and I asked her if she could just come and work with the company on this. And that started something that we were able to then work with her Old Testament class at Duke with dance. And it became clear that there was just a lot more to do. And the only one who was free to go to seminary was me. Everybody else needs to do that many hours worth of work for dance. I was the one who was free to open the books. And the more I opened it, the more I realized there's so much here, and there's so much here for the dancers to also know and glean. So we've been putting together a curriculum for the dancers, a theological curriculum, so that they can be trained not as deeply as we get trained at Fuller, but just enough to understand and to be able to use the tools that they have. And what has changed? I think I've just been confirmed that this is really important. And I also think that there's so much about the way we live our lives in our bodies, and we are suffering from some of that disconnect in so many of the things that we've experienced even in the past year. I would say theologically, with racism, with the politics, with the pandemic, with all of that. And we need this connection. And I think that dance, I think the arts can bring a lot of healing that needs to happen. And again, I'll say arts, yes, but art through the human body, how much more to see other humans moving and interacting and embodying things. So I do feel this sense of urgency. I feel like a master's, what we're studying here at Fuller is just scratching the surface, but we gotta start someplace. So.
That is very true. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. It's always great to hear how the seminary and theology is kind of further forming our students. So it's great to hear how that is really impacting you and your work with dance. I didn't see any other questions come through, but just wondering if you have any kind of last things you might like to say, and also just want to put it out there that if you're interested in learning more or seeing more from Morley's Dance Company, then you can contact, or you can go to ekklesiaballet.org and see some things there. So I'll just turn it back over to you.
All right. I just want to say, I know dance sometimes is kind of esoteric and hard to understand. And so I think one of the things I heard someone say at a dance performance is don't try to get it, just have the experience. And I think that's one of the things that I love about dance, and the way I think that dance is so powerful is that it stops our mind, or it bypasses our mind. And we so often trap things in our mind and we want to try to understand it, but dance gives us this experience to interact with something that maybe we didn't know how to touch, didn't know we could touch. We do these programs called Dance and Dialogue, and it's kind of a format like this where we talk a little bit about a piece, we show the piece, and then we talk a little bit more and interact with the audience, and then we show it again. And sometimes that's just so helpful because you would have heard the dancers talk about their own processing of the dance. And one of the things that's interesting about Dark Night was that the dancers really didn't understand or even able to dive into what was going on in the dance until after they had finished it and rehearsed it. And each one of them had a different perspective on all the different dancers and the roles that they played. And we almost unpacked it as we were working on it. And so our interaction with an audience it's a slow process. And I think the most important thing is just to experience it and even maybe think about what you felt in your own body. And then go back and open Psalm 42 and read it with that in your mind and just see what you learn or what you know or what you experience in a new way. That's the point, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. I think, I actually really love watching dance myself. And, but I can imagine how much more richness will be brought to it just to be able to watch it and then discuss it and then go back and watch it again and say, oh, wow. Yeah. What I see so much more in this now after I've had a chance to actually understand what's going on. So yeah, that's really wonderful. So thank you so much, Morley. Really appreciate you taking the time. And it was so great to be able to feature all the amazing work that you're doing in the world of dance, and look forward to seeing more from you and your company in the future.
Hey, thanks for letting me share.
Yeah.
All right.
And thank you all for coming too. And I hope that you'll join us again. We have about 5 more events happening this week. So we hope you'll tune in.
Right. Take care.